Today we embark on a journey towards the 21st century international energy revolution. Coal, oil, natural gas, solar, wind, hydroelectricity, nuclear energy, gas hydrates, and Nikola Tesla's free energy generator. But first I'd like to introduce to you German chemist Friedrich Burgess. He was awarded the 1931 Nobel Prize in Chemistry with Carl Bosch for a process known as coal liquefaction, or the Burgess-Pierre process. Back in the 50s, the process was adopted in Louisiana. The Louisiana process method produced fuel that was much cleaner at a slightly higher price than petroleum-based fuels at the time. The facility was shut down by the Eisenhower administration in 1953 after intense oil industry lobbying. Here's a little sample from the book Energy Policy in America since 1945. Gas-to-liquid technologies are based on the Fischer-Tropsch chemical process. A mix of carbon monoxide or dioxide and hydrogen called syngas is converted into fuel and various alternate petrochemicals. Catalysts such as iron, cobalt, and nickel are used in the process. We can obtain these gas-to-liquid fuels, or GTL, coal-to-liquid fuels, or CTL, or biomass-to-liquid fuels, or BTL. The process that makes these fuels clean is called hydrothermal carbonization. The resulting matter is said to capture 100% of the carbon in a biocoal, in a powder, that can be used as fertilizer. Workers in Germany have recently developed this conversion method. It involves moderate temperatures and pressures of biomass in a dilute acid for several hours. Biochar is charcoal that is specifically used to enrich soils, for example. But we're still going to produce petroleum products. We're addicted to plastics, textiles, fertilizers, detergents, colorings, and even medicine that is made from oil. So it looks like big oil is actually here to stay. Emissions of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide produced by American and Chinese coal electricity plants react with water molecules in the atmosphere and form acid rain. Acid rains cause the corrosion of steel structures such as bridges. It reduces fish size and fish population. It damages entire ecosystems and even causes paint to peel and the corrosion of statues. Coal mining machines use about 250 kilowatts of power. In 4 hours, a coal miner uses as much electricity as an average household uses in 1 month. Also, methane gas is released during the extraction of coal. The mining process can release up to 24 million tons of methane in 24 hours. The United States' nasty coal plants have continuously blown clouds of toxic fumes over the province of Quebec, where I live, since the first industrial revolution. We're very unlucky since the winds naturally push their disgusting clouds over the province. In eastern Canada, many of the water and soil systems lack of a natural alkalinity, such as a lime base. That means our ecosystems don't naturally neutralize acidity levels. So Quebecois water systems don't have a natural defense against acid rains. And more than half of Canada is composed of hard rock that can't neutralize acid rain. Back in 2000, United States sulfur emissions were measured at 14.8 million tons, and over 67% of United States sulfur emissions are from electric utilities. More than half of the acid rain here in Quebec originates directly from the United States. The oil industry has acquired its infamous legacy of human rights abuses with the help of the military-industrial complex, the petrochemical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, corrupted government officials who often have high positions in the industry, and private security firms, who have an important role in this fascist crackdown on society as private mercenaries for private bankers and the oil industry itself. The United States of America and their NATO allies had threatened the Taliban during the months preceding 9/11. This ultimatum made by United States representatives to the Taliban before 9/11 demonstrates how absolutely delusional many Americans and Canadians are about politics in general. It's also proof that big oil, military, and security companies strategically created the American dependency on foreign oil as a military tactic. The war on terror happened because big oil wanted to build the Trans-Afghanistan pipeline in the south of Afghanistan, where it so happens that most of the fighting took place. I mean, how else would MIC investors profit? The only way for weapon and tank manufacturers to profit is to terrorize the population using puppet politicians who fund the military-industrial complex with your tax dollars. The dependency on foreign oil was designed by weapons manufacturers who otherwise would be making useful things that are not used to murder, rape, pillage, and torture people around the world. I'm sorry. They keep receiving one tax cut after the other, and they force you into war every time and force you to pay with your tax dollars. So proportionally, lower class citizens pay more for war, for terror. You pay for terror. You finance terrorists. Average people work their asses off so that corrupt politicians can use their taxes to murder Afghan children. And then those same government officials lower taxes for corporations and the rich. And they blame the lower classes and their services for the national debt, for the deficit. Now, if it wasn't for war, taxes would be spent on infrastructure, on education, on healthcare. Every corporation is its own little fascist country with a dictator. 40 hours of your week are spent in a totalitarian dictatorship. That's if you're not homeless, jobless, or on welfare. Speaking of plutocrats, here's a great book by Chrystia Freeland. It is entitled Plutocrats: The Rise of the New Global Super Rich and the Fall of Everyone Else. You should definitely take a look. Now it really sounds like a sick joke whenever you claim to live in a free country. You live in a country where petrochemical companies spend millions of lobbying dollars each year to spray toxic pesticides on your food, where they refuse to label GMOs that were officially proven to threaten our species with extinction within 3 generations. But it's illegal to keep chickens in your yard, or to use medical marijuana to cure your terminal illness. Instead, they sell you expensive chemotherapy drugs that only work 2% of the time. Did someone say genocide? Did I just hear eugenics? Dear stupid eugenicist, I know many individuals who were born with disabilities, and it's disgusting people like you who want to cut funding for their services because you consider them an inferior species. If you're a eugenicist, starving handicapped people should roast you for breakfast. You know who else was a proponent of eugenicism and eugenics? Hitler. Crap, I did the Hitler thing. Let's just move on. Eugenicist pig. Ici au Québec, on produit des véhicules électriques d'une valeur de 12 000 $ qu'on peut tout simplement brancher dans nos murs. L'électricité au Québec est très abordable. Un véhicule électrique consomme en moyenne 250 $ d'électricité par année, un peu comme un chauffe-eau de 40 gallons. Alors, pourquoi est-ce qu'on dépense jusqu'à des milliers de dollars par mois personnellement, individuellement, en pétrole, pour des compagnies pétrolières étrangères, et on se demande pourquoi il y a un déficit? Qu'on nous permette de nous procurer et d'utiliser cette voiture sur les routes du Québec. Si on la construit ici, pourquoi est-ce qu'on ne peut pas la conduire sur nos routes? La réalité, c'est qu'on serait tous riches. Nous serions tous riches. Lorsque nous serons tous riches, nous devrons négocier avec les Premières Nations afin d'assurer le renouvellement des ressources vitales de leur territoire. Nous devrons assurer la coopération de la nation québécoise avec les nations autochtones. Avec l'avènement d'un procédé de production d'essence synthétique nommé carbonisation hydrothermale, on peut maintenant produire une essence qui capture 100% du carbone en une poudre qu'on peut utiliser en tant que fertilisant pour le sol, pour nos plantes. Cela indique que les poissons dans les lacs et rivières du Québec pourront un jour grossir comme jamais auparavant, puisque la pollution causée par les usines d'électricité au charbon aux États-Unis serait réduite presque totalement. Ça marque aussi le début de la fin de l'ère des algues bleues-vertes dans les rivières et les lacs du Québec, qui, avec espoir, retrouveront leur ballon acidique naturel. Dear America, and the private bankers who own it, please consider the hydrothermal carbonization process for synthetic fuel production. The chemical process does not produce any smoke. Final product does not burn. Instead, it glows, and it leaves the carbon behind in the form of a powder that you can use as fertilizer for your soil. This would reduce your carbon footprint by almost 100%. It would allow us Québécois to eat healthy fish in our lakes and rivers that won't be affected by your electrical utility needs. You can produce this environmentally friendly fuel using either coal or natural gas. Greg Vezina, a Canadian, developed a car that ran on ammonia in 1980. He simply converted the diesel pickup to run on ammonia, a hydrogen-based fuel. Take a look.
30 years ago, we did our 1981 shove and pallet and ran on 100% ammonia. This is prototype number 2. This is the diesel ammonia multi-fuel system. This is prototype number 3. And this is the gasoline ammonia multi-fuel system. All right, and here we have the gasoline ammonia. You'll start the vehicle, it'll run for 30 seconds on gasoline, and then it'll run on 100% ammonia. We will have 100% reduction in carbon emissions because there's no carbon in the fuel except for the 30 seconds when you start it, and much lower nitrous oxide emissions. It's higher efficiency and higher power output than conventional fuels. We own our own emissions control units and our own software to make it operate. Start it up. And there it is. And this is a multi-fuel system, so depending on how much load you have, it draws more and more ammonia. When you're at full load, it draws the maximum amount of ammonia, which is just slightly less than 50%. This is our own software, we own it, and this is what makes it work.
Up until recently, I believe that gas hydrates would be an ideal replacement for current oil and gas for various reasons. First, gas hydrates will emit 50% less greenhouse gas emissions as compared to conventional oil and gas once it is converted into fuel. Secondly, gas hydrates are more abundant than oil and natural gas combined. Plus, it can be found on the coast of every single continent. And Japan has already announced full gas hydrates commercialization within 5 to 6 years. And the Japanese are always in advance, everybody knows this. A successful gas hydrates extraction was completed in March of 2013. I had even more reasons to like the idea of gas hydrates extraction and commercialization. In fact, frozen methane clathrates underneath the ocean floor represents trillions of tons of trapped greenhouse gas emissions. Oceans are warming at a much faster rate than what was believed by the scientific community up until recently. Recent studies demonstrate that the oceans absorb much of the heat that is produced by the greenhouse effect. And now we know that the oceans are warming 10 times faster than what we previously thought. Another reason why I like the prospect of extracting gas hydrates was that it can be converted into rocket fuel and can be found all over the solar system. If we just leave the gas hydrates there, frozen underneath the ocean floor, eventually it will seep out and poison the oceans, releasing poisonous compounds that are aggregated with the molecules. But if we extract it and we store it, we can convert it into synthetic fuel using the hydrothermal carbonization process that allows us to create this fuel that captures 100% of the carbon in a powder that can be used as fertilizer for your plants. Now let me remind you that coal and natural gas can be converted into synthetic fuel that captures 100% of the carbon. So now I'm even more excited about extracting gas hydrates and clathrate. We have a decision to make. Either we adapt as a species, or we present an ultimatum before the fossil fuels industry and their friends. The military-industrial complex, the petrochemical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, those corrupted government officials, and those private security firms who basically serve as private mercenaries for the bankers and for the oil industry. Private bankers have manipulated American politics since before World War I.
I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. The growth of the nation, therefore, and all our activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world. No longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men. President Woodrow Wilson in 1916. Here's another one. It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Henry Ford in 1922. Fidelity Investments, State Street Corporation, J.P. Morgan Chase, and the Vanguard Group own all major food corporations and pharmaceutical companies. So Big Pharma belongs to the same people who own food corporations. Pesticides and GMOs are profitable for the cancer chemotherapy industry. Even doctors in the United States can legally profit from the sale of chemotherapy drugs. There are so many natural and effective cancer therapies and cures out there, and chemotherapy is ineffective 98% of the time. Have you not yet heard of cannabinoids? And what about the story of the father who cured his young child's brain cancer using medical cannabis oil containing high amounts of CBD, which does not induce euphoria in the user and combats brain cancer very successfully? Clean burning synthetic fuel will revolutionize all of industry. In other words, we're heading towards a third industrial revolution. Or is it fourth? Fuck that, I'm saying third. And now the fossil fuels industry can leave the countries that were ravaged by their wars. And if we commercialize gas hydrates like Japan is doing, we can just push the assholes into the sea and feed them to the sharks. Then we can use gas hydrates as rocket fuel, and we can send the private bankers to the moon. We will enslave the private bankers. We will send them to the moon to work in the first outer space gas station. We will send them the construction materials, and they will build us the first ever gas hydrates station on the moon. This gas station will be our pit stop before we go to Mars. It will be located on the moon next to the prison facility where we will detain the private bankers and their families, the corporate officials and corrupted government officials, and their selfish, greedy friends. We will keep them there where they will service humanity for the rest of history, at the lunar methane gas station pit stop on the moon. On the moon. Once we enslave the private bankers, we can start producing free, unlimited energy for all the good people of the world. At this point, you may be asking yourself, if we can produce free, unlimited amounts of energy using Nikola Tesla's method for producing energy using the Earth's electromagnetic field,
Why did you mention all those suggestions for the fossil fuels industry? Well, very simply, is because gas hydrates are a threat to mankind. The very existence of these frozen gases underneath the seafloor represent a tremendous threat in a world where oceans are warming much faster than we ever thought. It is a threat to the survival of the human species, a threat to civilization itself. Here's an example of free, unlimited energy production. Roll it.
It all started with a no. We do not give patents for perpetual motion devices. That's what the patent examiner said. Howard Johnson walked out of the patent office. Not with one, but with 3 patents. He was patient and willing to fight the patent office bureaucracy for as long as it would take. The 3 patents that the U.S. Patent Office had awarded to Johnson were for a simple yet very powerful device that generates 100% free electricity day and night and is virtually maintenance-free and is completely environmentally friendly with no fumes, no byproducts, and no dangerous emissions. It was now possible for everyone to make their own electricity and cut the cord that tied them to the greedy electric companies. Something happened. Something that literally killed the invention and kept it from the public's reach for more than 20 years. Now, for the first time in 2 decades, the truth about Johnson's invention is starting to unfold. And with it, generating your own free power has now been made possible again. And in this short presentation, that probably won't stay up for long, you'll get all the nitty-gritty details about how to use Howard Johnson's suppressed invention to make your own free electricity, slash your electric bill by 75% or more in less than 30 days, and even get off the grid so you can be energy independent and never owe another dime to the electric company.
Here's the undeniable truth. Free energy production was suppressed by the fossil fuels industry, who also happened to have suppressed and lobbied against synthetic fuel production in the early 1950s. Here's some additional footage demonstrating that we can effectively produce unlimited amounts of free energy. Roll it. I didn't even mention wind or solar energy or any other renewable energy source such as geothermal. Currently, 25% of Germany's electricity needs are produced in an environmentally friendly fashion. They aim to produce 35% of their energy using renewable sources by 2020. I'm not afraid to mention nuclear energy. Uranium is a terribly dangerous substance. In this recent documentary, Thorium, an energy solution, they explain that instead of uranium, which is highly radioactive, thorium would be a much safer and logical alternative. This would involve upgrading reactors so that facilities could accommodate thorium for energy production. Anyway, that's another alternative that I'm putting forth for this existing nuclear industry with a bad reputation and an existing infrastructure and workers. But after all this talk about producing free and unlimited energy using Nikola Tesla's method, why in the hell would we even consider nuclear? Here's even more free energy footage and link. I hope the private bankers and the oil industry open their hearts to the prospect of harvesting free energy, the Tesla way. In exchange, we can promise not to cut their heads off, and we can let them have their own island in the Pacific, but they have to promise not to nuke us. To make sure that doesn't happen, we have to dismantle all the nukes. Once all nuclear weapons are dismantled, we can abolish veto. We can grab all the tanks, the drones, Stephen Harper's stupid engineless jets, those cheap $50 AK-47s they sell in Africa, and we can shove it all in a big-ass melting pot. We can grab all the weapons, the bombs, artillery, ammunition, and melt it into a huge statue dedicated to world peace. Now, I would like to apologize to the United States of America. This is Phil Dor's apology to America. America, I sincerely apologize. I lost patience with your fascist police state, and I got very angry. Never shall I perpetuate hatred towards the good people of America. Never shall we blame the American people for what the private banks and the corporations have done. They have corrupted all of the governments on earth. They made us kill each other in the world wars. They financed the military-industrial complex with your tax dollars to murder mothers and children using fear-based population manipulation tactics that were also used by the Nazis, who were also funded by private bankers. For example, the Bank of England when they funded the Nazis before World War II through Swiss bank accounts. The Vatican had also assisted the Nazis in crimes against humanity. The whole concept of the oil and gas industry is a military tactic, since we had discovered how to produce unlimited free energy in the early 1900s. The chemotherapy cancer industry is committing genocide for profit, since we have had natural and effective cancer cures and remedies for a very long time. Therapies such as the Gerson therapy and cannabinoid therapy, which was developed recently and used before the 1930s cannabis prohibition. Hemp medicine was used for thousands of years. The petrochemical industry, Monsanto, has an important role in this genocide. They've been buying out seed companies, as you may know. They sell us cancerous, tumor-causing GMOs and pesticides, and they refuse to label their products. They practice monoculture, which is literally diminishing the soil worldwide. They're forcing local farmers into cities. Monsanto relies on a fresh flow of oil to produce toxic pesticides and plastics, adapting the industry for zero emission, 100% carbon capturing fuel. Using gas hydrates and or coal or biocoal may require separate storage and transportation. Renovating some infrastructure may be necessary. Thank you for watching the Phil Dor Shakedown. I'll see you next time on the Phil Dor Shakedown, Episode 6, Democratizing Business.
I'm just some guy talking about a revolution. Everybody, they just stare back. 'Cause ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody got time for that. You say the world is dominated by private bankers, and you show them you know you're all facts. But ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody got time for that. Nobody got time for that. You say Monsanto been poisoning us with pesticides and GMOs, and all we have to do is ask for fucking labels. Ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody got time for that. Nobody got time for that. You say the military industrial complex is funded by your taxes, and you don't consent to it no more. But ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody got time for that. Nobody got time for that. You say there's greedy, egotistical, selfish individuals manipulate the government for their own self-interest. They fund their mercenaries and private security firms, and the MIC use their taxes to kill